You've got to kind of, literally, it's like an old adage, but you can only control the things you can control, and that's nothing. There's nothing you can do. Just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy it. And I just started enjoying it about a year ago. That's funny.
James Bond isn't just a character, he's a cultural institution. For more than 6 decades, audiences have flocked to theaters to watch the suave British spy save the world with a smirk, a martini, and gadgets Q would envy. From Sean Connery's effortless charm to Daniel Craig's gritty reinvention, every actor who's donned the tuxedo has carried both the weight of tradition and the thrill of reinvention. Now, with Craig having bowed out after No Time to Die, the world is perched on the edge of its seat, asking the same question. Who will be the next 007? The answer, as of late 2025, is both clear and mysterious. Clear because producers have hinted at the direction they want to take. Mysterious because no actor has yet been officially chosen. What we do know is enough to send Hollywood gossip mills into overdrive, and fans into a frenzy. Villeneuve takes the reins. The first major bombshell came with the announcement that Denis Villeneuve, the visionary behind Arrival and Dune, will direct Bond 26. This isn't a safe choice, it's a bold one. Villeneuve is known for his cerebral approach, his ability to craft tension through mood and spectacle rather than flashy gimmicks. If his Dune films proved anything, it's that he can balance massive world building with intimate character arcs. But Villeneuve won't begin casting until after Dune. Part 3 wraps in late 2026. That means the world is in limbo. The tuxedo has been dry cleaned, the martini glass polished, but no one yet knows whose hand will hold it. A fresh face mandate. For years, fans and media outlets have thrown out names. Henry Cavill, too obvious. Idris Elba, too old by the producer's standards. Tom Hardy, a fan favorite, but perhaps not the reinvention Eon Productions is chasing. Instead, reliable outlets like People, Cinema Blend, and NY Post have confirmed a specific mandate. The next James Bond will likely be a relatively unknown British male actor, late 20s to early 30s. Why? Because producers want someone who can grow into the role. They're planning at least a decade of Bond films, and they don't want to start with an actor who's already at the peak of their career. It's the same strategy that worked with Daniel Craig. Remember when his casting was announced? Fans balked. He was too blonde, too rough, too un-Bond. And yet, 5 films later, Craig became one of the most definitive Bonds in history. Producers are betting they can capture lightning in a bottle again. The reset. Bond's new beginning. What kind of Bond will this new face inhabit? Insiders suggest a reset. This won't be a continuation of Craig's storyline. Instead, it will reimagine Bond's early days. Rumors hint at a focus on his pre-MI6 years, possibly exploring his time as a naval officer before he earns his 00 status. If true, this would be a seismic shift for the franchise. Instead of parachuting into established spy action, audiences might watch Bond become Bond. It's a move that could breathe new life into the series and demand an actor who can balance youth, vulnerability, and raw charisma. The pressure of inheriting a legacy. Being cast as James Bond is no ordinary career move. It's a coronation and a curse. On one hand, the role can launch an unknown actor into global stardom overnight. On the other, it can pigeonhole them, making it nearly impossible to escape Bond's shadow. Ask George Lazenby, who played the role only once, or Timothy Dalton, who struggled to match Connery's legacy. That's why the producers are so cautious. This isn't just about finding a good actor, it's about finding the actor who can carry a billion-dollar franchise on his shoulders while redefining what Bond means in a new era. Fan theories and fantasy picks. Of course, while producers quietly comb through screen tests, fans are busy with their own fantasy drafts. Social media lights up daily with speculation. Some say Tom Holland could bring youthful energy, others favor Jacob Elordi, fresh off his breakout performances. Harris Dickinson, with his mix of intensity and subtlety, has also been floated. But there's a catch. The more famous the name, the less likely it seems to align with producers' vision. Eon wants someone who can grow into the spotlight, not someone who arrives with it already blazing. A global event, waiting to happen. Make no mistake, the announcement of the new Bond will be one of the most watched casting reveals in Hollywood history. It will dominate headlines, spark debates, and likely crash Twitter, or X as it's now known. Whoever gets the call won't just be signing onto a role, they'll be stepping into a global identity. For now, all we can do is speculate. But one thing is certain. The hunt for Bond is on, and the world is watching. Behind the curtain of Bond's biggest gamble, the politics of 007. Casting James Bond isn't just a creative decision, it's a geopolitical one. For decades, producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson have been gatekeepers of the franchise, carefully balancing tradition with reinvention. Every time a Bond retires, the next casting becomes a battlefield between fan expectations, studio agendas, and cultural shifts. This time, the stakes are even higher. The Craig era redefined Bond for a modern audience. Less gadgetry, more grit, less womanizing, more introspection. No Time to Die closed that chapter with a bang. Literally, as Craig's Bond sacrificed himself. Now, the producers are effectively rebooting the series. That means the next actor isn't just inheriting a role, he's setting the template for the next 20 years of Bond stories. And Hollywood insiders say Broccoli and Wilson are under pressure from all sides. Studios want a bankable franchise face. Streaming giants want cross-platform potential. Fans want a mix of tradition and freshness. Meanwhile, critics argue that Bond should evolve even more radically to reflect today's world. The age dilemma. The fresh face requirement isn't arbitrary. Daniel Craig was 38 when he first played Bond in Casino Royale, and while his performance was lauded, the physical demands of the role became increasingly noticeable by his final films. Producers don't want a repeat. They want someone young enough to stick around for at least 4 or 5 films, spanning a decade or more. That effectively rules out beloved names like Idris Elba, who at 53 would be in his 60s by the end of such a run. Henry Cavill, though fan-favored, is also edging into his 40s. Tom Hardy at 47 is already past the sweet spot. The math is brutal, but necessary. This leaves a very narrow window, late 20s to early 30s. Young enough to grow, old enough to carry the gravitas of a seasoned spy. The screen test whispers. Hollywood loves a good secret, and Bond casting is full of them. Already, whispers of screen tests have leaked. One name making rounds in the gossip columns is Scott Rosemarsh, a relatively unknown British actor who allegedly tested for the role earlier in 2025. While nothing official has been confirmed, the fact that his name even surfaced shows how serious producers are about finding a true newcomer. Then there's Harris Dickinson, praised for his intensity in The Kingsman and Triangle of Sadness. Dickinson has the right look, the right age, and a career that's just heating up, exactly the kind of trajectory producers could mold into Bond superstardom. Jacob Elordi, riding high from Euphoria and Saltburn, is another fan favorite, but insiders argue he may be too famous already, contradicting the producer's preference for a lower-profile choice. Still, his height, presence, and brooding energy tick a lot of Bond boxes. Other rumored names: Tom Holland, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Regé-Jean Page, pop up constantly on social media polls. Yet, each seems slightly misaligned with producers' brief: too young, too established, or too entangled in other franchises. The fan versus producer clash. The most fascinating drama isn't happening on set, it's happening online. Fans are fiercely divided over what they want from the next Bond. Traditionalists argue for a classic British alpha type: square jaw, tuxedo ready, dripping with suave confidence. They believe Bond should look and act like the archetype built by Connery, Moore, and Brosnan. Progressives push for reinvention. They argue that Bond should reflect the diversity of modern Britain, not just in terms of ethnicity, but in personality, vulnerability, and values. Realists side with producers, acknowledging that the financial longevity of the franchise depends on someone young, adaptable, and relatively unknown. This three-way clash has made every rumor a headline and every fan theory a trending topic. One Reddit user summed it up: "We don't just want a Bond, we want our Bond Hollywood's gamble on an unknown." Choosing an unknown actor is risky. The role requires instant charisma, physical believability, and global appeal. But if it works, the rewards are massive. Just look at Craig. Before Casino Royale, he was known, but hardly a superstar. Within months, he was on magazine covers worldwide, cemented as a household name. The danger, however, is another George Lazenby scenario, a one-and-done Bond who fails to connect with audiences. Insiders say producers are taking their time precisely to avoid that mistake. They're not just looking for an actor, they're looking for a cultural phenomenon. The Villeneuve factor. Denis Villeneuve's involvement adds another twist. Known for his meticulous casting, Villeneuve doesn't just pick actors, he transforms them. Think of Timothée Chalamet in Dune, or Amy Adams in Arrival. He's drawn to performers who can balance humanity with myth. That's exactly what Bond needs, someone who can play a man of flesh and blood while embodying an almost superhuman icon. Villeneuve's fingerprints will likely shape the casting more than anyone else's. The clock is ticking. Here's the kicker. Casting won't officially start until after Dune. Part 3 wraps in December 2026. That means the world has at least another year of speculation, rumors, and tabloid fodder before we hear even a whisper of confirmation. And when that day comes, expect it to break the internet. The actor will go from relative obscurity to global scrutiny in an instant. Every past role, every interview, every social media post will be dissected. The tuxedo comes with a microscope. Why the world cares who wears the tux? Bond as a mirror of society. James Bond has never just been about spies, guns, and martinis. Each era of Bond reflects the anxieties, values, and fantasies of its time. Sean Connery's suave charm spoke to the optimism of the post-war 1960s. Roger Moore's playful wit reflected the disco-flavored escapism of the 70s and 80s. Pierce Brosnan's sleek, gadget-heavy Bond symbolized the glossy confidence of the late 90s tech boom. Daniel Craig's grittier, vulnerable portrayal tapped into post-9/11 uncertainty and the modern appetite for realism. So, the question isn't only who will play Bond, it's what kind of Bond will this era demand? With the world grappling with political upheaval, cultural shifts, and technology transforming daily life, the next Bond must embody a character who feels both timeless and urgently relevant. The global pressure cooker. Bond isn't just a British icon, he's a global one. The franchise has raked in billions worldwide, making the casting decision less about pleasing London and more about appealing to audiences in Los Angeles, Lagos, Mumbai, and Beijing. The next actor must feel international without losing the distinctly British core of the character. This global reach is part of why producers are cautious. Miscasting could fracture the franchise's identity. Imagine a Bond that feels too niche, too quirky, or too disconnected from the archetype. The backlash would be immediate and brutal. Reinvention versus tradition. At the heart of the casting debate lies a paradox. Bond must change, yet remain the same. He must evolve to stay relevant, but preserve enough of his DNA to still feel like Bond. Too much change risks alienating loyal fans. Too little risks making him feel outdated. This tug of war is why debates over casting can turn so fiery. Should Bond always be white, straight, and male, as originally conceived? Or should he evolve to reflect the diverse realities of today's Britain? Even the question itself sparks controversy, with one side accusing the other of clinging to the past and the other warning against abandoning tradition. Bond as a symbol of escape. Why does the world obsess over Bond in the first place? It's because Bond isn't just a character, he's a fantasy. He represents style, power, danger, and control in a world where most people feel powerless. Bond always has the right line, the right suit, the right gadget, and the right move in a crisis. In times of uncertainty, the fantasy becomes even more appealing. The new Bond, whoever he is, won't just be an actor in a tuxedo, he'll be a symbol of escapism for millions worldwide. That's why the decision carries so much weight. The Villeneuve blueprint for tomorrow. Denis Villeneuve's creative direction suggests that the next Bond film will lean into realism and gravitas, much like Dune and Sicario. Expect less campy fun, more psychological tension, less reliance on gadgets, more exploration of character. This makes the casting even more crucial. The next Bond actor will need to embody not just charm and strength, but also layers of vulnerability and depth. Someone who can deliver quiet intensity in one scene and explosive action in the next. If Villeneuve nails this balance, he may redefine Bond for an entirely new generation. Why this casting matters more than ever. At its core, the obsession with Bond's casting reveals something deeper about our collective imagination. Every few decades, the role acts as a cultural reset button, a chance to redefine masculinity, heroism, and fantasy for the era ahead. The 2026 casting won't just introduce a new actor, it will shape how audiences worldwide imagine what it means to be a hero in the 21st century. Is Bond still the womanizing, tuxedoed relic of the past? Or is he a reimagined icon for a world that craves heroes who are as complex as they are cool? The moment the curtain lifts, when the announcement finally comes, whether in a press release, a surprise reveal, or a cinematic teaser, the world will stop to watch. Social media will erupt, critics will dissect, and fans will debate endlessly. Some will cheer, others will rage, but one truth will remain. The actor who steps into Bond's shoes won't just inherit a role. He'll inherit a legacy, a burden, and a fantasy that has captivated the world for over 60 years. Closing hook. So, as the clock ticks toward 2026, the real drama isn't on screen. It's in the speculation, the secrecy, and the global anticipation. Somewhere out there, a young actor may already know he's destined to be the next James Bond. For now, we can only guess, argue, and dream. But when the name is finally revealed, one thing is certain: the world will never look at him the same way again.